We ready to roll? Right, okay, so we've got a new month and the start of a new project. So I think this one works out as a 5-week project, so we've got plenty of time. And it's one that I chose just because I always rather like night scenes. So I thought it'd be, yeah, that's right. So I thought it'd be quite a nice one to work from. I'll do a little bit of a charcoal demo today, but I just wanted to do a kind of general introduction to the theme, really. So you could make it as hiya, that's all right. You could make it as simple or as difficult for yourself as you want. I've got a fair few photos, but to be honest, a lot of mine I've taken because I like the subject. So there's a lot of things that might be a little bit complicated, like street scenes and stuff like that. But it could be something like a sunset or something like that. You could perhaps count, or something maybe landscapey with the moon or something like that. So if you wanted to look for resources, have a little look around. And then I was thinking like people to mention, or artists to mention, the one that really comes to mind is Edward Hopper, because to me quite a few of his, and that's the famous one, that he did, the Nighthawks. I don't know if you're familiar with him and this work. So they're very kind of atmospheric. He was a 20th century American painter, and a lot of them feature people in buildings. So I picked that one out because it's the famous one, but looking through, there's quite a few that, this would be like a couple on the deck at night time. It could be day or night, that one, but it almost to me reads like a night time looking into a window. And then there's this one, again, the train, I think that's night time, looks like a night out the window. So quite, they're quite atmospheric. Some people find them a bit lonely, which maybe they are. I rather like that. I just find them really interesting. So yeah, he's a good person to look at. And also his methods, I think, are quite interesting, because he does start with, quite often starts with a charcoal sketch. The people are often his wife or himself. So he kind of models for himself for the men, and he used to get his wife to model for the women. So they're sort of scenes, they're kind of reimagined scenes. And quite often there are things like things like this, perhaps be on a train and he'd see a couple through a window, or he might be travelling maybe on the road and see a couple on the porch. So it's sort of things he's seen, and then he's kind of recreated them, which I rather like. I rather like that idea. There's a little bit of a narrative, a bit of a story about them. So yeah, good stuff there. So this one, this is one that I quite fancy painting myself. Maybe, or some sort of version of it. Oh, the other thing is I brought a few to show you. So I've got a couple that I've done as demos. So this was a demo. It's not the best of paintings, but this was from a photo I took when I was in Saffron Walden, around about, I think we were painting, me and my friend were painting in Saffron Walden about November time. And when it went dark, it was sort of ended up looking a bit like that. So,
just like that.
Sorry?
Just like that.
It's a painting I wouldn't mind developing. Things like the car seems too big to me. I think some of the proportions don't work. And it's acrylic paint, which it works in some places, but I prefer oils. But again, I quite like the idea. This other one is. This one I did of the Cursal, and I actually used a couple of photos for that, which is one of the photos. Probably lost the photos now.
There you go.
Yeah, I can't remember, I'll pop them down somewhere. But with this one, I think that bit was in one of the photos, and then the car was in the other, and I just kind of combined the two. And quite often, when I take my photos, there's bits I really like, but it's not like a whole painting. It felt a bit like that with this one. The other one I'm working on is, that's the two photos of the Cursal. So that was one of them, and that was the other. So I kind of basically used the car out of that one, and I like the light on the road, and then this one is the light on the lit up Cursal. This is one I started on location on Friday night up in London. So that's Waterloo, from Waterloo Bridge, looking like St Paul's, and then you've got a few of those sort of, I think a few of those, that's the one they call the walkie-talkie building. So again, that one I'll probably go back, hopefully get a bit more done this weekend on that one. That's sort of one done from there. So yeah, something like this. I was thinking like, actually, partly, you know, that's, seeing the Edward Hoppers reminds me like charcoal sketches. So you could do a sketch as a drawing, or a charcoal drawing as a drawing in itself, or it could be just a sketch working out an idea. And actually, if you're working with a few different images, a compositional drawing isn't a bad idea, and then go into a painting. So I particularly like this little figure. So I think something like this, I would try and keep some of these areas quite light. So the fountain shapes, I'm thinking I perhaps need to just keep a whole area fairly light there. And also like the colours in the background, but again, I'd like to see a little bit more of the building rather than just the lit up bit. So I might just move it over slightly, have it over here, and make it a fraction taller. So just kind of get it to suit my painting rather than
Artistic license.
Yeah, artistic license. It needs to look believable, but if it's just slightly further over, most people aren't going to know. They're not going to be that interested. So it's bending reality rather than completely fabricating it. So that could be the cursor in the background there. And then I'll just pop her in. I've got other photos with the different children kind of running through the fountains. What I did was I went down there to try and paint the fireworks one night, which is always quite a challenge. But before they started, this was quite interesting because it's all nice coloured lights at night and the kids were running in and out. So I did a little painterly sketch of that while I was there, which I'll have to try and find. I've lost it in the studio somewhere. And, you know, took a few photos, so I've got a few references I can use. So there's other figures I quite like to put in if I did do a bigger painting. So she can be sort of there. But what I really want to do then is just kind of get everywhere very, very dark. So I'll use this bit. And this is, it's rather a large scale to do this. You know, if you're doing this yourself, you could maybe make a little kind of thumbnail sketch, perhaps A5 size or something like that, just to work out, you know, how much you want in your overall drawing or painting. So that's really dark. It's actually going to be quite dark down here. The bits kind of come in up, and quite often when I go and paint on location, I wouldn't get too much more than that because things change very quickly. But it sometimes just really captures the atmosphere a bit better than the photos do. And we've got these, quite like the way the lights sort of spread out. So something like that. Actually, I'll go through her and just draw her in again. What a little girl. It's just kind of working it into the paper. So hopefully you're just sort of getting an impression of. I find with this cartridge paper, my board's a bit bobbly underneath, so I'm getting a little bit of a texture I don't want. But sometimes it sort of sits on the top of the surface. I like to get it into the grain of the paper, so that you get this.
What kind of paper is that?
It's just ordinary cartridge paper. It's basically cheap paper I get from the wholesalers. You know, it's reasonable, but it's probably not the best paper you could get. If you're doing a charcoal drawing, it might be worth just buying a nice quality piece of either perhaps reasonably smooth watercolour paper or something like that. But for sketches, this is absolutely fine. It's the sort of paper you'd have in a sketchbook. So that can be a bit, and again, I can kind of work that a little bit darker. Stuff that's a little bit darker.
So you put your dark colours in first?
Yeah, it's almost like the medium. So this would be like a medium tone, and then go a little bit darker. And then with the should have a rubber here. Yep. I've got either the mechanical rubber, which I can then almost sort of draw with. You know, I could draw.
Oh, that makes it.
Yeah. Yeah. So these lights, I can kind of draw them out, get little sort of pinholes in the dark. So it's really just trying to encourage some tonal drawing. So rather than relying on the lines, like I did roughly where I wanted her to be, but it's sort of working areas of light and dark. So this could be where the fountains are going. That's a little bit of that. And then using either a putty rubber or an ordinary rubber or some sort of rubber, lift out sort of highlights. So you should be able to sort of draw into this to an extent. Probably wants to go a little bit darker to get that. Yeah, that's starting to show up. Sort of draw in. So it's certainly a lot more. It's a lot quicker than doing the painting. You've just got like a sketch you can then use. Let's work a bit more in there, and then lift areas out. And then the figure itself, I'm going to put her back in, maybe a little bit higher, bring them a bit higher. Another thing you can do is once you've got a sketch, is take a photograph of it, and then sometimes I've printed that photograph of the sketch out, and then drawn a bit more over the top of that. So you've got different versions then. So you could maybe add a figure in one of them, and then move the figures around and things. So it gives you, it's almost like developing an idea through some sort of simple printmaking then. So she's going to be something like that. She's a bit dark in the background, so I'll just work her in like that. But this bit can go a bit lighter then, so I could lift some of that out, perhaps with a bit of tissue. Sort of kind of merge that in a little bit.
Does it follow that the further away it is, the darker it should be, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. No. You just in one way or another, you just got to try and get it to work. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in a sense, these figures in the foreground are dark, almost darker than the sky in this.
Yeah.
But what I would try and do is, you've got a very dark figure, a slightly lighter figure. I might, in a painting, just try and balance things up a little bit to get the painting to read well. So, yeah, no, legs are whoops. So something a bit like that. And then I perhaps could draw some of these bits into this now. So some of the fountains come down a bit more. It's a bit rough and ready, but obviously could work that and refine it. But something along those lines might be all right. Perhaps they're a bit too dark then, but soften them out. Just kind of, gradually refine that or use that as a compositional line. But if you wanted to look at the Ed Popper's work, so some of the pages have got some of the sketches, and they are just rough sketches. They're not necessarily intended to be seen. So they're just working drawings, your plans, your workings out, as it were.
That helps you get the tones right, tones of the pictures.
Yeah, it helps you get the tones right, and just helps get the design, the overall design of the painting.
I think the black and white picture is great. You get the depth with the
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
charcoal.
Yeah, because there is colour in there, but it's all fairly
Yeah.
subtle. It works very much as a
Yeah.
tonal image. And I'm probably more of a tonal painter in some ways. Although I really love colour, the tones have got to be there. I don't just rely on one colour next to another. So, and I think in the other photo there was a girl sort of kind of hair coming out, out of the fountain. So I just wanted to sort of combine a few different things. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good. Right, good.